Welcome to this explainer. Every time you order a package from overseas, or even just check a made-in tag on a t-shirt, you're actually participating in this fascinating, entirely hidden layer of the global economy. Today, we're going to look at exactly how the United States takes our incredibly messy, complicated globe and artificially reconstructs it into a highly organized, strict numerical spreadsheet for international trade.
So let's just dive right into this by asking a very practical question. How does a shipment of goods actually know where it comes from when it crosses a border? When millions of products are moving around the world every single day, you can't just rely on people typing out country names, right? There are way too many spelling variations, language differences, and borders that constantly shift. What you really need is a universal decoder ring for the global economy.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with deciphering global trade data, then the anatomy of Schedule C, navigating by numbers, hidden islands and territories, geopolitical quirks and data, and finally Schedule C versus ISO codes.
Let's start with Section 1, deciphering global trade data, the decoder ring for commerce.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that this decoder ring is officially known as Schedule C. It's the official classification of country and territory designations used exclusively for compiling U.S. export and import statistics. Basically, whenever statistical information is needed for foreign trade reports, using these specific numeric designations is mandatory. There's no way around it. If you want to import or export, you have to play by the rules of Schedule C.
Moving right along to Section 2, the anatomy of Schedule C, sorting the globe. Now, they didn't just list countries out randomly, or even alphabetically. Instead, the code assigns numbers in a very deliberate, sweeping motion. Phase 1 groups everything numerically by continent. Then, Phase 2 moves that sequence generally from north to south. And finally, Phase 3 sweeps from west to east. They essentially drop this massive digital grid right over the Earth, mapping out the globe completely logically.
But you might be wondering, who actually gets to decide what all these places are called? Well, believe it or not, a single entity, the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, acts as the ultimate authority here. They dictate the exact conventional spelling for every single corner of the Earth listed in this document. They bring this strict, rigid, bureaucratic order to the absolute chaos of human geography.
Let's jump into Section 3, navigating by the numbers, the baseline code.
The true starting line for this entire numbering system is this highly specific baseline number right here, 100.0. This is exactly where the North American continent begins in the system and consequently where the entire Schedule C list kicks off. And, appropriately enough, code 100.0 is assigned directly to the United States.
From that baseline of 100.0, the numerical sequence just flows outward. You can see Canada right nearby at 122.0, and then the numbers flow southward, down to Mexico at 201.0. But look closely at that little detail tucked right next to Mexico, includes Isla de Cozumel. That tiny operational note actually hints at a massive challenge for the system, which brings us to our next point.
And that brings us to Section 4, hidden islands and territories, geographical anomalies.
See, a single numeric code often has to act like a massive umbrella. Take code 588.0 for Japan, for example. That doesn't just mean the Japanese mainland. It sweeps up a staggering array of distant, disparate entities. Everything from Okinawa all the way down to the incredibly remote Bonin and Volcano Islands. They are all packed neatly into that one number, 588.0.
In fact, myriad obscure islands, places you've probably never even heard of, are systematically tucked under these major national or regional codes. France's 427.9 completely absorbs Corsica. The code 283.1 for Guadeloupe bundles in Grande Terre and Basse Terre. Even the Falkland Islands, under code 372.0, reaches way out to claim the freezing remote South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands. In the world of global trade, literally every single rock in the ocean must have a barcode.
And hey, the system definitely applies this logic to itself, too. The United States categorizes its own geographic anomalies together. It assigns code 980.0 to the sweeping, vast collection of remote reefs, atolls, and minor islands scattered across the Pacific and Caribbean. From Baker and Howland Island to Kingman Reef and Wake Island, they're all grouped into one tidy little U.S. minor outlying islands code. Now let's pivot to Section 5, geopolitical quirks and data, history in the margins. This is where it gets really fascinating. Notice how massive historical shifts are perfectly preserved right in the margins of these import rules. Code 428.0 is for the Federal Republic of Germany, but the operational note explicitly specifies it includes the former German Democratic Republic, East Germany, and Berlin. And under 521.0 for Yemen, we see it includes both the former Yemen Arab Republic and the former People's Democratic Republic of Yemen. The data has merged these formerly divided states into unified numeric codes, literally leaving a ghost of the Cold War right there in the text.
The U.S. trade statistics system also relies heavily on strict decimals to navigate highly sensitive geopolitical boundaries. Under the 508 umbrella in the Middle East, for instance, the system separates the data into 508.1 for Israel, 508.2 for the Gaza Strip, and 508.3 for the West Bank. The data just neutrally maps the existing borders exactly as they functionally exist for the purpose of moving goods. We can also observe how major global trade hubs in Asia are systematically tracked. While mainland China is assigned code 570.0, other massive economic centers are granted their own completely distinct codes for statistical purposes. Macau operates under 566.0, Hong Kong under 582.0, and Taiwan under 583.0. This ensures the trade data accurately reflects the very distinct economic systems operating in those areas.
Finally, let's explore Section 6, Schedule C versus ISO codes, U.S. versus global standards. So, while Schedule C utilizes highly specific numbers like 122.0 to map North America's spatial sequence, the international community often uses something called the Annex B International Standard, or ISO codes. The ISO system simplifies Canada to just the letters CA. It's a really fascinating contrast between the rigid, sequential numbering of Schedule C and the intuitive alphabetical approach of the ISO.
It's the exact same story with Brazil. Its complex three-digit Schedule C identifier of 351.0 simplifies globally down to just the letters BR. Importers love using those two-letter ISO codes to quickly report the country of origin, but behind the scenes, the statistical heavy lifting in compiling relies heavily on that granular, numerical Schedule C structure.
But listen, it is absolutely crucial to remember that this list is a living, breathing document. The globe isn't static, and neither is this data. The U.S. government has to continuously update Schedule C to reflect the ever-shifting realities of our modern world. Whenever a country changes its name, or borders shift, or new nations are formed, revisions are immediately sent out via special notices, public bulletins, and tariff supplements. The data literally has to evolve as human history evolves.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider the incredible hidden cartography encoded within these statistics. The next time you check a shipping label on a package sitting on your doorstep, think about the immense human history, the geopolitical conflicts, and the thousands of remote islands, all of it neatly compressed into a single decimal number. Thanks for joining me, and keep your eyes peeled for those data structures hiding in plain sight.